right, let's testify, man. Oh God, you've done so much for me. I'm grateful and overwhelmed here at your feet. And I could stay here forever, Lord, but you call me to something more. And I hear you say that you have a plan to use every broken woman and man to display just how good you are. We are your living pieces of art. What good does it do to hide away when all of my scars are a picture of grace? All right, so I will testify of the power of God. Tell the word of the hope I have found. You Lord, for my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Oh, do you believe it? Has He done it for anyone else? I said, has He done it for anyone else? Cause the God that I serve, He's always at work. Has He done it for anyone else? So come on and testify of the power of God. Come on and tell the world of the hope we have found. For our body was broken, our hearts were made whole, and that's too good to keep to yourself. Come on and testify of the power of God. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. I'm gonna testify. Somebody testify your voice. This is my. So I'm gonna testify. Somebody testify. Come on, take it out. Jesus, my champion, the victor of grace, the only one worthy of all of my praise. Yeah. So come on and testify. Oh, somebody lift Him high. Come on, testify of the power of God. I will tell the world of the hope I have found. Oh, for my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Sing it. Oh, my body was broken, my heart was made whole, and that's too good to keep to myself. So I will testify of the power of God. Oh, let's do that right now, Murfreesboro.
And good morning, everybody. Well, it actually is morning. It's bizarre. So, yeah, good to see you all. Now, Stan, I think Youngster was actually suggesting that I box someone for charity, in which case I'm just going to find the weakest, most pathetic person that I can possibly find on YouTube to make that choice. But as far as feud videos, and since you mentioned that, And hey, Mercer, good to see you, buddy. Um, but so I'm glad to see you survived your surgery. But the feud thing, honestly, can you get views doing it? Yes. Are you going to get sustainable growth by doing that? Probably not. Because the honest truth about it is that, like, even when, like, for example, when I did one of my videos about Critical Drinker, it got quite a few views. However, it didn't increase my subscriber count, and basically just got a whole lot of hate views, right? It was basically a bunch of Critical Drinker subscribers watching the video and then saying nasty things about me. Now, that can be fun, but I wouldn't advise trying to use that as a strategy to build a channel, because it's just, for one thing, you're building a channel on the wrong thing. Yeah, I at least in my humble opinion, and I get it. A lot of people do this, and it can be, I mean, you can make money doing it if you do it well. But I don't want to build a channel purely on negativity like that. After all, that's exactly what those guys did. And that's the irony of it, is that if you turn your channel into an anti, say Fandom Menace channel, right? So you go after the likes of Doomcock and Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and all that. Well, guess what? You're just doing the same thing they do. Because what happens when if they put out a video you have no problem with? Well, if you actually build up an audience, they're going to expect you to rip it to shreds. And that's exactly what we see from the likes of Nerdrotic and Critical Drinker and stuff, is that, like, they've decided Fantastic Four was the worst movie ever 6 months ago. And, I don't even know how many videos they put out about all the disastrous problems with Fantastic Four and all the 17,000 reasons it's going to fail. And of course, if it makes 1 penny less than $1 billion, they're all going to declare that it is the worst flop in human history. Even though I think what Marvel is trying to do right now is rebuild their brand reputation, and I think that the reputation has improved a little bit with Daredevil Born Again, with Captain America, and with the Thunderbolts. I think that those movies are definitely an improvement, in that show are definitely an improvement over what we've gotten and not to mention Deadpool and Wolverine. That's all stuff that has been significantly better than a lot of the stuff we've gotten in the last few years. So if that's what they're trying to do, is just rebuild the brand, but they're not as concerned with every movie making $1 billion, I think that's a smart, long game. That's exactly what they did back in phase 1 of the MCU. People forget that Iron Man 1, Iron Man 1 I think did all right, but like Hulk only made like 300 million. Or maybe it was even less. But the early Marvel movies were not all $1 billion movies. So, anyway, but these guys have already declared everything a failure. Thunderbolts is a huge flop, even though and Captain America is a huge flop, and nobody likes Daredevil, and nobody likes this, and nobody likes that. And of course, I will tell you, anytime anyone says nobody likes fill in the blank, they are lying. Because somewhere on this planet, you can find someone who literally likes anything. Even the leader from Germany in the 1940s has a certain segment of the population that think he's pretty cool, right? So, and I'm not talking about people who arbitrarily throw that term out to Trump supporters. I'm talking about, honest to goodness, genuine people that believe in his ideology. No matter how crazy it may sound, there are people that will agree to just about anything. And Alex, boy, that was a mean comment, I gotta say. I don't know what you have against that song. I really don't, but you know. Stan was having pancakes for breakfast. Maple syrup made me think of you. And Mercer saying it's a ship out of danger. I don't know. Negativity can sell, but you know, and I'll be honest, Doomcock, Nerdrotic, and Critical Drinker are just very good at it. Because most people, there are a million YouTube channels that do nothing but negativity and never have a video that gets more than a couple hundred views. Mr. Know-It-All had a video sort of blow up just by saying he liked Ironheart first 3 episodes. Did that drop yet, or did he get some kind of? Oh, I think he might have gotten like some kind of special deal. I don't think it's out yet, but just double check here. I don't. Honestly, oh, I guess it is. Maybe. Yeah. I did not even realize it's out. So I'm going to have to watch Ironheart this week. And hopefully it's better than I predict it will be. But yeah, Ironheart I do not have high hopes for, but, you know, we'll see. Stanley says, everyone was claiming he's a Disney shill getting paid. Only trouble is apparently nobody watched Daredevil, didn't make any viewer lists. Only trouble is apparently nobody watched Daredevil. Lots of people watch Daredevil, but Disney Plus as a whole has been down. And, you know, part of that is I think that there's too many streaming services and there's not enough content on each streaming service to warrant all these subscriptions. Like, quite frankly, I get a couple of my streaming services for free bundled in with, like, I get some with my phone. We get one with our Walmart Plus account, gets us like Paramount Plus or something. So we're paying discounts for almost all of our streaming services. And that's good because while, for example, Disney Plus, I generally watch for Marvel and Star Wars content. And so if there's not any new Marvel or Star Wars content, sure, I can go back and watch the old, the older stuff. But most of that I already have anyway. So, you know, do I need it for the back catalog? Not really. So now that Ironheart is out, I will definitely be checking it out. And I'll let you guys know what I think. I'll give you an honest appraisal. But would it be worth the cost of the full subscription price for Disney Plus just for that? Probably not. Netflix. Netflix, we have, basically we've been watching Squid Games, which, I really like. We watched Death Note on there. We watched a couple of things. But honestly, most Netflix original content is absolute crap these days. And so there's really not that much stuff to warrant the price. Max, man, I can't even tell you the last time. I mean, well, except for, so we watched that new Batman anime. Well, we watched the first part of it. We haven't finished it yet. And it's interesting, but there's so little content there that it's almost laughable. And then, Paramount Plus, pretty much just Star Trek. And so, I do watch the original series almost daily on it. And, when Strange New Worlds comes out, I'll, continue that. But would I pay full price for Paramount Plus just to watch Star Trek? Probably not. So I think the problem is that there's too many streaming services offering too little content. What I think needs to happen is some consolidation. I think Disney has deep enough pockets to where they can take the hit, and plus they have one of the best back catalogs of any of them because they have all the classic Disney stuff. But honestly, I think that Paramount Plus, Peacock, stuff like that, they should probably be looking at becoming, just content creators for Netflix or for Disney, because there's just too many of them nowadays. Alex says, I disagree. It's not the negativity, but providing honest feedback so people know whether to spend time and money to see a movie. That's what I use Red Letter Media for. You do know Red Letter Media is not a serious critique channel, it's a comedy channel. But here's the thing, Alex. It's, again, if, like, I used to love, back before most of you were born, a little show called At the Movies with Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. At the time, two of the, in fact, I think two of the best film critics of all time. And unlike these people on YouTube, they were actual film critics. They actually understood film. And so when they were talking about things with some authority, it was because they were authorities on the subject matter. That being said, you know what was fun on Siskel and Ebert was when the two of them disagreed. When they would fight over, one of them liked the movie, one of them hated the movie, and they would fight, and it was hilarious every single time. However, what they didn't do was just, they weren't the Jerry Springer show. They didn't just bring out movies they hated, right? They didn't just, say, and by the way, even when a movie was bad, they usually would try to say, well, this, I could see what they were trying to do with this, but it ultimately fell short or whatever. They wouldn't just sit there and say the whole thing was a steaming pile of fecal matter without saying the word fecal matter. When you see people on YouTube that are just hate baiters, like Nerdrotic, like Doomcock, like Critical Drinker, then, that's their whole gimmick. If they're not putting out the hate, then they're not going to get the clicks. Now, defenders of those channels will frequently point out the occasional good reviews or nice things that they've said about things here and there. However, those things are basically just, that would be like saying that there's no wokeness in Hollywood because of Top Gun Maverick, right? So even though, Top Gun Maverick actually has some wokeness in it by the modern standard, but pick a movie, your favorite whatever Macho Man movie. Because that movie came out, wokeness in Hollywood is a myth, right? So just because they occasionally put out a video, like I remember when Critical Drinker put out his review of Wicked, he liked Wicked, a movie, and I don't give a crap about how accurate it is to the stage play. This movie is produced as it's meant to invoke by the visual imagery that you see on screen that this is in the same universe as the classic Wizard of Oz. That's why they went out of their way to make everything look as similar as they could to the classic MGM film Wizard of Oz. And when you watch Wicked craps all over the lore of Oz so badly. Like if you watch The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch is obviously pure evil, and Glinda is obviously pure good. But in Wicked, Glinda is an obnoxious, snobby, prom queen basically, and The Wicked Witch is actually the only person in the entire land of Oz that gives a crap about animal rights. But Critical Drinker loves that movie. However, oh my gosh, don't get him started on anything from Lord of the Rings that even slightly varies from what he thinks the original lore is, whether he knows it or not. Both Captain America and Thunderbolts were financial failures. I think that you are missing the point there. So let's take a look. So, box office. Oh, all right. So let's look at the year 2025 thus far. Now, of the top movies of 2025, Captain America is ranked number 5. Thunderbolts is ranked number 6. And of the top 4, the only 4 movies to beat Captain America and Thunderbolts, 3 of them are kids' movies: How to Train Your Dragon, Lilo and Stitch, and Minecraft. And the other one is the totally unexpected, but everybody knew was going to be awesome, Sinners. And honestly, I don't think that there's anything to be embarrassed about with these box offices. Now, did they, now you say, oh, but they were complete failures. Well, let's take a look. Captain America Brave New World took in $415 million. The Thunderbolts took in $381 million. So Thunderbolts a little shy of 400, Captain America a little better than 400. Now, is that stellar Marvel numbers? No, clearly not. But do I think that they were intending for these movies to be billion-dollar films? No. And I don't, the funny thing is that, people are saying, yeah, but the budget on these movies, the budget hasn't been published. So anybody that's telling you what the budget was for these movies is lying to you. So we're assuming what the budget may have been. And so then we can extrapolate whether we think it's a financial success or failure. Now, based on standard Hollywood numbers, if the budget for Captain America, Brave New World, and Thunderbolts is somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million, then those movies made money. If their budgets are closer to $200 million, those movies lost money. But we don't know. And, no matter what Nerdrotic and Doomcock and everybody else tells you, we don't know. And so, I'm really tired of people using made-up bogus numbers to try and prove their point. It's just like when people try to show a like to dislike ratio when in fact the dislikes are not published, and they say, well, they're using this algorithm that can calculate how many dislikes there would be based on the number of views and the number of likes. No, it is a guess. Because the honest truth is you have no idea. And, you can pump all the things you want into an algorithm, but YouTube doesn't tell you how many dislikes are put out on videos anymore. They used to, but they don't anymore. And if the only way that algorithm that they're talking about would be in any way, shape, or form accurate would be if the audience of YouTube has not changed, and if the habits of people hitting the like and or dislike button haven't changed. But I can tell you the habits of people hitting those buttons has definitely changed. Because I see it on my own videos. I've seen, ever since they made it so that dislike numbers are not published, very few people bother to hit the dislike button because they know it won't get counted. There says Ironheart that TV show needs more full frontal female nudity. Why? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not a prude, but if you're just saying that because you like looking at naked chicks, look, go to Pornhub or whatever, And Alex says he got a bronze. Song gets stuck in my head for days. Well, that's good. It's a good song. Real maple syrup or Aunt Jemima. A lot of DC animated movies are free to watch with ads on YouTube right now. I don't know why. Maybe it's to help the new Superman movie. Could be, just like I believe season 1 of Strange New Worlds is on YouTube free right now. Probably get people excited for season 3, but people do that kind of thing. His original video, not sure who his is. And the new one scheduled for the last 3 episodes. Are you talking about the Ironheart thing? His video about the first 3 episodes get a lot of shill accusations. But you know what? Look, Mr. Know-It-All, even though we haven't been able to connect recently, I think he's giving his honest opinion for the most part. I don't think he's glossing it up, and he's certainly not a shill. And the thing is that people don't even understand what shill means anymore. But if you are a shill, it means that you are benefiting directly from whatever it is that you're reviewing. So, for example, John Campea is a shill. And I'm not saying that to be insulting or anything like that, but the man's wife was an executive at some film company. He goes and hobnobs with all the producers and stuff in Hollywood, and then he does shows about them. So yes, he was benefiting directly from those people that he was reviewing, and so consequently, he would always give a softer review to anybody that was working with his wife. Stan says health of Disney Plus might have something to do with it. Yeah, I think it's the health of the streaming wars in general. I think, I don't believe in superhero fatigue. I believe in streaming fatigue, however, because people don't like paying 17 bills that are $12.99 a month. Oh, wait, $13.99. Oh, $14.99 a month. No, people are done with that. So people are cutting ties with one service or another, whichever one they're watching the least, they get rid of. I don't think Daredevil showed up in any of my Samba TV lists that try to calculate how many viewers streaming shows are getting. But here's the problem, Stan. They don't know. I get that people try to figure it out. They can figure out, like, to a certain degree, if one show might be doing better than another through various ways of trying to search the web. But as far as how many people actually watch Daredevil, the only way we would know that is if the good people at Disney start putting view counts on there. And I don't think that's going to happen. Youngster says, what do you think about this in the news? 24 kids disappeared in Texas Christian camp because a flood took them, swept them away. Is it the camp's fault not to keep the kids safe? Is it the camp's fault that a flash flood ripped through the place and killed 24 people? Is that really what you're asking, youngster? I just uninstalled Disney Plus to make room for a soccer app. Well, that just goes to show that you have no taste. USA plays Mexico today. Oh, great. Go. Oh, yeah. You know, soccer, the sport where if somebody walks within 3 feet of another person, they act like they got punched in the face. I finished Ironheart last night. In my opinion, episodes 1 and 2 are a bit mad, but please try to stick it out. Episodes 3 through 6 were fantastic and well worth watching. Well, there you go. There's Spike's official review. Please don't spoil anything about Ironheart because I have not seen it. I don't know much about the story except for what was in the trailer, so I am looking forward to it. Is Ironheart the best Marvel show yet? Yeah, that's such a clickbaity title. Most comments accuse him of getting paid by Marvel. Yeah, you know, but that kind of thing is just stupid. Look, I don't think he's getting paid by Marvel because if he was, I'd be demanding some of that money. Yes, but my taste seemed to match up with Red Letter Media 90% of the time. With Siskel and Ebert, it was a coin toss whether I would agree. They seemed a little behind the times. They were bleeding edge back in the day. But as far as, you know, so Red Letter Media, you agree with them. Okay, so you agree with the guys that do jokes about keeping women in chains in their basements, just not the guys who are serious movie critics. So, yeah, that tells me a lot. Sounds like Alex enjoys being an echo chamber. I would say that's probably true. They do have some good recommendations. I got into Kyle Gallner movies thanks to them. That's something they talked about on Red Letter Media. Honestly, I know they try to do a semi-serious show on Red Letter Media. I'm giving them a hard time because, you know, the Plinkett stuff is so over the top. But, either be a YouTube comedy channel or try to be a serious critic. Like, if you want to look at a serious film critic, look at someone like Chris Stuckman on YouTube. He actually knows something about film. I'll tell you this much, he knows a lot more than Critical Drinker about film. Heck, Mr. Know-It-All knows a lot more than Critical Drinker about film. Let's see. Being in an echo chamber is better for blood pressure. Yeah, but it's also, unfortunately, a cause of radicalization. And I want to purposely avoid that. If everybody I'm around is conservative, I'm going to start listening more carefully to the liberals. If everyone around me is liberal, I'm going to start listening more carefully to the conservatives. I want to have a balanced perspective on things. I want to be a non-partisan. Because as soon as you drink the Kool-Aid for one team or the other, you blind yourself to a lot of things. And that's why we have some of the mess that we have right now. Trek reviewers in the house, good to see you. Stan says, didn't Thunderbolts make less than the Marvels? Possibly, but, as far as I know, it's not a contest. They're trying to rebuild brand cred, and I think that Thunderbolts was a good movie. But unfortunately, it's a property that most normies have never heard of. And even then, of course, big shocker, it's not even the Thunderbolts, which, spoiler alert, it's the new Avengers. And so I bet you if the movie had been called the new Avengers right off the bat, it probably would have made more. Where is Star Trek Section 31? Oh, my proctologist removed it from me. I saw Thunderbolts last night. I was surprised how much of the film was about mental health. It was a pleasant surprise. Yeah, Thunderbolts is actually it's probably one of the deepest Marvel movies ever made, which is quite frankly very surprising because the marketing for Thunderbolts was all about how funny Red Guardian is. And don't get me wrong, Red Guardian is funny. But Yelena's journey dealing with depression and anxiety, and Sentry's whole thing with his bipolar disorder and everything, is so much a part of this story. And, that's not really in, I mean, they kind of hint at Yelena when you see her, just kind of bored and stepping off the building, but you don't realize how serious that is. You just think it's just her being cool because, she's, a badass. Sorry, Marvel's made 206. Well, yeah, so it made about half what Thunderbolt said. Yeah, Marvel's was the problem with Marvel's is that Captain Marvel is such a blah character, and she's a third of the movie. Kamala Khan, or however you say it, she is absolutely adorable, and Photon is underutilized. So, unfortunately, Brie Larson is 2 for 2 at ruining movies featuring Captain Marvel. And I don't blame Brie Larson. It's just that the way that it's written and directed, yeah. And although, to be honest, it does feel kind of like Brie's phoning it in the second one. I know in the first one there were conscious choices to make her the stoic woman that she was, but in this one it just felt like she was bored. Trek Reviewer says, no, no at all. Well, they're making educated guesses and figures the studio takes half the box office. Yeah, the studio gets a lot more than half the box office. The studio on a tentpole film, which anything put out by anything that's distributed by Disney is considered a tentpole film. But on a tentpole film, which is usually the films that you'll see when you go to the multiplex, it's always in the big deluxe screen on the weekend that it comes out, maybe even for a week afterwards. Like Superman will probably stay in the big deluxe screen until Fantastic Four releases. But any tentpole film, the first couple of weeks especially, usually it's very close to 100% of the box office goes to the distributor. So we go to Disney. Now, that number gradually tapers. And so by week 5 or 6, it might start to go to, say, 75%. By week 7, maybe 50%. By week 10, maybe even 25%. But the thing is that 90% of your ticket sales in most movies are in the first 2 weeks. So if the first 2 weeks, you're getting like 95%, that's what matters. Now, you do have a little bit of a difference when it comes to certain foreign markets, like China. China it's kind of ironic. China's the biggest foreign market, but it also, you have to do well in China to be profitable in China, in comparison to others. I think China they're like YouTube. I think they take about 30%. So instead of getting 95%, in China you get like 70%. But in most other markets, you get your 90 to 95% for the first couple of weeks. And so, yeah, if you're figuring that the studio is taking half the box office, no, you're way off. Dislikes can be estimated by the number of negative comments. If they outnumber the likes, it has gotten ratioed. You know what? I've had videos where every comment on the video was negative and I didn't have a single dislike. So no, that's just, you're just making an assumption. Because there's a difference between somebody like, for example, I've left negative comments on Critical Drinkers videos without putting a dislike. Many times. In fact, I very rarely hit the dislike button. But I'm more quick to hit the like button. So it's just a guess. That's all it is. It is possible for films to make their money back in the ancillary market. Ancillaries are when the film sold as digital downloads, rentals on airplanes, rentals in motels. That's also true. In fact, that was an article that I was reading. Is that let me see if we go back. And I got too much going on here. Yeah, that like Captain America: Brave New World is apparently doing incredibly well on Disney Plus, even though some people think its performance in the theaters was lackluster because it didn't make $1 billion in February. Sold to TV channels like TNT. Honestly, as far as as far as secondary marketing is concerned, the lion's share of the money you're going to make after ticket sales, the lion's share of the money you're going to make is rentals, like digital rentals nowadays, or digital purchases. Then you'll have things like if you lease the movie to, like, for example, every now and then you'll see like a Marvel movie might show up on Netflix. And that's because, Netflix leases the movie, and so they make a little bit of money there. The movie might go on Pluto or one of those other free streaming services that gets ad revenue. And just like YouTube, you get revenue sharing going on. So there's lots of ways for a movie to make money over a long period of time, but the honest truth is that the digital rental and digital purpose or digital purchase is where the lion's share of it's going to come from. All right, please don't talk about the ending of Ironheart. I think Hotel Rwanda was the very first movie that, in 2009, lost money at the box office, but it broke the bank through Netflix. Never saw it. Star Trek Discovery is stuck in my head. I'm sorry. You can get a frontal lobotomy for that. Oh, I agree. That's why we were laughing when people were suggesting it was getting paid by Disney. Yeah. Gorilla's in the house. Says, Kapla, got a lot to do, so don't know how long I'll be here, and still tired from the 200-mile drive home. We've seen some impressive wall clouds, and we did have some funnel cloud drop down, but missed us. Well, I'm glad it missed you. Yeah, I'm operating on no sleep since yesterday. I want to say 7 in the morning. Trustin's in the house, says good morning. Let's see. I've heard SF Debris' theme for Discovery. SF Debris I kind of lost interest in when he kind of abandoned YouTube, and now he's back, I guess, but I don't really care. Through the Rain's very heavy. Before you should drive. I think Samba extrapolates, but they know how many people are watching through their portal, right? But but the problem is that might tell you that more people. And I don't know exactly what Samba is, but let's see, what is so I know what you're talking about. No, not Simbal. That's a flavorful food. Brazilian dance and music style. Samba is a high-performance, scalable, distributed software for providing access to various cluster file systems. Okay. So if they're not an ISP or something like that, then who cares? So what? People that people that use Samba, they might be able to calculate how many people. So that doesn't mean Samba spies on you, so I wouldn't use it. Discovery isn't my favorite Trek show, but I will always appreciate it for what it did for me. It was the first time my daughter showed any interest in Star Trek, which led us to bonding over the show. That's good. Captain Fandom Nerd in the house. Good morning. You know what, Youngster? I don't care if it's fake. No more comments about Ironheart. Let's see. How did the cans fall to the river rose 30 feet in 45 minutes at 4:30 in the morning? They were expecting 6 inches of rain, not 20. Exactly. But, you know, people want to blame somebody. I loved it when Red Letter Media pretended to have been bribed by Disney. Okay. Again, comedy channel, not a critic channel. Has anyone heard of Mercer? Yes, Mercer was on just a few minutes ago. He is alive. Didn't Ebert make a famous comment that video games can never be made into a good film? I don't know. Ebert said a lot of things. He was an opinionated guy. He was right about some of it. He was wrong about some of it. Same as anybody that's opinionated, like yours truly. What do you think of Elon Musk saying that he's starting a third political party? Good luck. I'm sorry, but Elon has ruined himself politically, in my opinion. Not because of anything he's right or wrong about, but if you look at his behavior over the last year, he was the producer of more electric cars in the world than any other individual. And he was making all that green money from all them liberals out there because Teslas were extraordinarily popular among liberals. Then he decides, hey, I'm going to go full on MAGA, which of course pissed off his customer base. And so now the liberals hate him. But then he and Donald Trump have a rough breakup. And so now MAGA people are kind of divided on him. So I don't think he has any kind of solid base where people just want to follow Elon Musk. And Alex, the Democrats did win. The Democrat's name is Donald Trump. Probably pointless. Sorry, ever worked and has starting a new party. Well, actually, and Elon Musk can't run for president anyway because he's a foreign national. So that's why studios are obsessed with opening weekends. Yes, they're very obsessed with opening weekends because they need that box office gold for the first 2 weeks. In order, that's how they make their money. Okay, that's interesting. If you're watching, that's an interesting idea. I look forward to seeing it. How would you rank the 1980s sitcoms? Different Strokes, Family Ties, Growing Pains, Silver Spoon, Who's the Boss, Charles in Charge, and Perfect Strangers? Well, number one, you left off the greatest sitcom of all time that was during the 80s, and that is MASH. However, of those shows, let's see. I would definitely put Family Ties ahead of Growing Pains, ahead of Silver Spoons, ahead of Who's the Boss, ahead of Charles in Charge. But I'd probably put Perfect Strangers ahead of Family Ties. Different Strokes was hit and miss. When Different Strokes was good, it would probably be the top of that list. When Different Strokes got stupid towards the end, it would probably be at the bottom of the list. So much for a movie being out the whole summer because word of mouth keeps going. Well, it still happens. It just and the funny thing is, it's more common for that kind of thing to happen to an independent film. And independent films aren't as radically affected by that because they don't get the 90% deal, because they don't have the negotiating power of Disney. Stan, have you seen the new Jurassic Park? That seems to be the current punching bag for all the Phantom Menace YouTube crowd. Yes, I did see it. And okay, I haven't watched anybody's review on it because honestly, I've been driving so much as far as Uber that aside from this live stream, I have not touched YouTube since my last live stream. So I genuinely don't know anything about what anybody's saying on YouTube. So the Jurassic Park Rebirth was good. You know, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. I mean, I didn't hate seeing it, but then I have the subscription deal at the theater. And in fact, the wife did not want to see it. She was like, I'm not seeing this movie. And then I drug her to see it. And she's like, okay, it wasn't that bad. But there were things about it that were silly. Like, I mean, Scarlett Johansson apparently is a 4-foot tall Amazon because, you know, she catches a guy as he's, you know, he falls off a cliff and she grabs the rope, braces her knees, and catches him dead stop. Which I thought was absolutely laughable. The dinosaur effects were really good. For the most part. I mean, honestly, like I gotta say this. For the first time since the original Jurassic Park, their opening shot with the dinosaurs was really a great shot that gave you a sense of awe about the size of these creatures. And that was great. But then they introduced the D-Rex. Why the D-Rex? I don't know, but I think it has something to do with the fact that its head looks like a giant dick. But yeah, the D-Rex is like a almost like King Kong sized kaiju of a dinosaur that, you know, and it was just so dumb looking. I mean, conceptually, I could get behind the idea of this genetically modified dinosaur, but it looked so dumb. The story was very bland, very predictable, but for a mindless action flick, it wasn't bad. Universal has no streaming services, so their films go to Netflix. That is not true. Universal's streaming service is called Peacock because NBCU is the name of the company, as in NBC, the network, and Universal Pictures, owned by Comcast. Lore says, I just think it was a brave choice to kill off Riri Williams and Ironheart. Yeah, of course. I think it's a service that aggregates streaming services so you can watch stuff without actually having to manually research which platform. I think it's a service. I think it's a service that aggregates streaming service so you can watch stuff without having to manually search which platform. So is it one that people watch stuff illegally on, or is it one that you have to plug in your credentials to? Because if it's one that you watch stuff illegally on, then I have no respect for it whatsoever, and any numbers they give are just pirate numbers anyway. And yeah, I figure your comment was before I said no more. Yeah. Let me do my live stream, you jerk. What's with kids always wanting a Band-Aid for every little thing? Yeah, I know. It's like a little bit of blood pouring out of them, and they want you to plug the hole. I don't get it. SF Debris videos keep getting copy wronged by Paramount, so he took them. So he took them to his site. Yes, I know, because he doesn't know how to properly edit. And they were not copy wronged. I mean, look, they were content ID matched, and he didn't want to fight it. And so it's a common problem. Look, if you're going to do video reviews and you're going to use clips, then you got to be very careful about the length of clips and for example, if you put a clip, like if you've watched as painful as it was to do, watch some of my Section 31. There's like wall to wall clips in those, right? You can do it. Even with the most egregious people like CBS, you can do it. You just got to know how to edit, and you got to take the time to do it. But if you just want to throw 3-4 minute long clips in there, no, you're never going to get away with that. And of course, now Alex wants to talk down YouTube. Look, Alex, if you hate it so much, nobody's pointing a gun at you and saying you have to watch it. No, Lori, he was not banned. Stopped using clips due to a quite literal message from a lawyer stating that we may have to go to trial if I continue to use them. That's funny. I would be like, okay, I ain't got nothing for you to take, so fine. And no, he was not banned. He's just saying because he hates YouTube. He's talking about SF Debris. Let's see. By the way, you haven't decided which book to do after Exodus? Yes, I have. No, I'm not honorable enough yet to be banned. I don't know why, whatever. Laura says, I'm so confused. Yeah. Laura, Alex is a troll. Okay, that's all you got to know. Alex is 100% troll. Democrats were screaming about the Medicaid cuts and the big, beautiful budget bill. Yeah. And so are a lot of other people, including me. What's your point? Oh, yeah, Trek View. I didn't think of Cheers. Cheers was another really good one. But let's see. Let's see. Do you think AI will eventually replace writers in Hollywood because the Steelers don't have anybody to pay? Because the Steelers don't have to pay anyone to write. No. Because I don't think that if you look at AI-generated content, particularly AI, well, okay, there's different types of AI-generated content. So, for example, if like when I do the various parody songs that I've done, I write the lyrics 100% on all of those songs. So the humor of the song are the jokes that I wrote, and then I'm just letting the AI put it to a particular musical style, and that so it approximates my vision. However, if I tell Chat GPT to write a funny song about something, it almost always sucks. If you tell ChatGPT to write, if you tell ChatGPT to research certain things, it can come up with some very good information. If you tell it to write you a script that's compelling and has interesting characters and is an original story, yeah, good luck. Let's see. I think AI is becoming pretty powerful, but not to the level to replace writers. It'll probably be a required tool. AI writing right now is not the equivalent of the uncanny valley for pigs. No, and well, so when it comes to AI, by the way, there's a book that Trustin, if you're still here, thank you for recommending it. It was written by John Lennox. It's called 2084, and which is a play on the 1984. And it's talking about the future of AI. And one thing that Lennox talks about quite a bit in his book, and I happen to agree with, is a lot of people think that AI is clever. It's not. AI is intelligent, but it is not clever. AI has the ability to narrowly take a particular subject and rearrange things into a logical format. But for example, if you tell AI to write you a joke, it might write you a joke based on its samplings of thousands of jokes, and the joke may actually have a bit of humor to it, but the AI has no idea why it's funny. And even if it can give you a textbook definition of why it's funny, it doesn't know what that means. Because AI is not a thinking, conscious being. Interesting. Genesis is described having a theme of beginnings. Exodus delivers. Leviticus is instructions. Numbers is journeys. Critics are calling afterbirth. I'm not sure what you mean there. Oh, you're talking about Jurassic World? Critics or YouTube pundits? I don't think critics are calling it that. It's not that bad. It's just not. I would say it's, a lot of people hate me on this. There's been one really great Jurassic Park movie, and that was the first one. And this one, I would say, is probably above average for all the rest of them. Wish there were movies about dinosaurs, not monster movies. Well, that's the original Jurassic Park, But then they want to make it bigger and more exciting and blah blah blah. And Godzin says, "Hey, Michael, give me a kiss." No. With 48 million addressable TV devices globally powering massive end-to-end viewership data and household identity graphs, Simba TV is transforming the viewing experience for everyone. Okay, so let's see. TV. All right, so as of right now, there are an estimated 1.72 billion TV households worldwide. And this isn't households, by the way. You're looking at devices. Now, let's look at, let's see, how many TVs per... All right. No. Okay, average number of TVs in, let's see, house that's in the U.S. is 2.3. Let's see, household globally. Okay, let's see. Okay. see, household. And so, looks like, I know there's a lot of TVs in the United States. So the United States got the highest number, 2.3. Some countries have obviously less than 1. So let's just take an average and say that it's and so 2.3 down to 1, so we'll say 1.15. No, that wouldn't be right. 2.3, but the average between 2.3 and 1 would be 1 point. Okay, so 2 and 1 would be 1.5, and 0.3 would be another 0.15. So 1.75. So if that's the case, with Simba, okay, so that means that what we need to do is multiply 1.72 times 1.75. Okay, so that means that what we're actually looking at is 3 billion 10 million. So I'll just round it off to 3 billion. Let's see. By 48 million. All right, so, oops, wrong way. I always do that backwards. Cut, paste, 3. Okay, so, and then, so the, yeah, so the Simba is, let me rephrase your statement there, or well, not your statement, but their statement. With 0.016% of TVs globally, they are transforming the viewing experience for everyone. Okay, if you're saying it's legal, is it, so are you plugging in your credentials to it? Because if you're not, then it's not legal. Let's see, Bluto versus Kingpin. I would have to go with Kingpin on that one. They're both technically normal humans, and while Bluto has taken a punch or two from Popeye, not after he has spinach. Popeye versus Bane, that's a tough one, because Popeye with spinach versus Bane with venom, that's going to be really close. What also spies on you? Yeah. Church is about to start for you. All right, Godson, you have a good one. Yeah, if you do watch Critical Drinker reviewers, he just loops over the same couple of 5-second clips over and over. Yeah, he always uses the clips that were in the trailer. That's just what Critical Drinker does. It's a common. He's not the only one that does this. Is you take publicly available clips, like clips from the trailer, and you splice them up in what feels like a semi-random order. And then you just play it on a loop over and over and over while you talk about whatever you're going to talk about. And people go, ooh, what a well-produced video, because people are dumb. IP Man versus Grasshopper from Kung Fu. IP Man all the way. Don't get me wrong, I love Grasshopper from Kung Fu, but IP Man was definitely more of or Ip Man, or however you say it, was more of a badass. Can't wait for you to do the Book of Kings. Well, yeah, that'll, boy. Funny, the freedom of speech advocates get called trolls. Thomas Jefferson spinning his grave on 4th of July. Yeah. That's another thing, Laura, if you're still watching. Alex thinks that freedom of speech means that businesses can't regulate their own platforms like YouTube. And talk about King Josiah. It makes no sense to me that these people that make YouTube videos that show their faces but use an AI voice or a voice changer. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Michael should sumo wrestle Lore Reloaded. Lore would win because he doesn't have MS. I'm surprised no one has tried to reboot either Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea or Sequest DSV. None of them are popular enough to merit a reboot. I mean, there's a lot of shows that nobody's rebooting. I mean, give it time. Netflix will eventually. I mean, heck, they did Lost in Space. Now, some of the things is just a rough estimate, not saying it's perfectly accurate. However, based on everybody they monitored, Daredevil didn't make the top 10 list. It just, yeah. So of their sample of 0.016%, that's not a scientifically viable sample. And you have to assume, I mean, are people that use Simba typical television viewers? I doubt it. But media has been using it as a gauge since the services don't publish any numbers. Right, the services don't publish any numbers because they want to keep it as a trade secret. And quite frankly, media uses a lot of false information. It's so funny because, I love it. When the information goes against someone's narrative, it's fake news. When it goes with their narrative, it's a very impressive algorithm that is approximating the truth. Let's try to extrapolate based on views logged through their service. Yes, but that is a specific type of viewer. Now, the only thing that tells you is that of people that use the Simba service, Daredevil wasn't in the top 10. But that would be like saying, hey, you know what? I polled every single person I could find at the Republican National Convention. And, Trump should have won the election by 99.9%. I don't know how the heck Kamala Harris got any votes. Remember the good old days when I would spend all Saturday binging sci-fi debris? No, I don't remember those days because I wouldn't know that you were doing that. Troll just got number 3. Okay. I don't use it, but yes, you have to have subscriptions in their streaming services, and the Simba thing just puts everything in the same menu. So it seems to me that Simba would be, or however you say it, or Samba, I guess. Because if it's, I don't know if it's cloud-based or if it's on your computer. If it's cloud-based, it seems like it would be awful close to violating the terms of service of all those streaming services because you'd have to share your username and password with them. Taking off, have a good one, Tresson. You have a good one, buddy. Used to love Sequest, Talking Dolphin and all. Well, I know that's Life of Matthew's favorite part of it. First season of Sequest was good. I had a tough time getting into it, to be honest. Trek Reviewer says it did have Roy Scheider at least. That's true. But Roy Scheider doesn't necessarily mean good. Censorship on YouTube was not corporate, but done indirectly by FBI. We already had this conversation. Yes, I know that you are a conspiracy theorist. But whatever. I'm not saying that the FBI has never went to, various places and says, oh, you need to take this down, usually because somebody is posting something that's illegal to have on the internet. However, 99.99999% of the time, if YouTube is taking something down, It's because of their own systems, not because the FBI is telling them to take it down. But if the FBI finds an ISIS video on YouTube, you're darn right they're going to go and say, yeah, you need to take this down. By the way, you know what? That's the FBI's job. I know a lot of people don't understand that, but it actually is part of their job. Another type of show they don't make anymore is the Viper or Knight Rider show type. Yeah, they don't make like a cool vehicle with some kind of procedural law enforcement very much anymore. There was Knight Rider, there was Airwolf, there was Blue Thunder, which of course was based on the movie. You had you mentioned Viper. There was the A-Team with their van. You had a bunch of different stuff like that. Youngster says, I think these companies should offer some shows only on cable and other shows only on streaming at the same time. Well, that would be one way of doing it. But the problem is, then they would lose market share because you see, companies like Disney, right? So Disney has television networks on cable, right? And of course, they have Disney Plus. So it would be stupid of them to not put their content on Disney Plus because most of the people that have Disney Plus and don't have cable aren't going to get cable just because a Disney show's on it. Because most of those people, like myself, they don't want both because it's already too darn expensive with one or the other. So I'm certainly not going to opt for both. And yes, Alex, people do still have cable. Nielsen is a more reliable source. They are built into Disney Plus. You can opt out, though, in the settings, but it is buried, so I doubt many do that. Nielsen is, I'm not 100% sure how accurate they are. Is... let's see. Yeah, there was a panel of households for an entire view audience. Yeah, they basically do the same way they've always done. Let's see. But as far as it being built into Disney Plus, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, I guess that's true. So I didn't even know about it. So I'm going to be opting out of that then. But of course, Nielsen doesn't tell you generally. I don't know if it does for the. I haven't looked at their stuff for streaming. But let's see. I'm trying to see where you can get the information. Nielsen. So yeah, according to Nielsen, the number one program right now is Guinea and Georgia on Netflix, followed by The Accountant 2 on Prime, Animal Kingdom on Netflix, Department Q on Netflix, Straw on Netflix, Bluey on Disney Plus, The Better Sister on Prime, Love Island on Peacock, Grey's Anatomy on Hulu, and SpongeBob on Paramount Plus. That's the top 10 for this last week, or for this current week, it looks like. So, however, they, let's see. And it says, okay, this, ranked by total number of minutes viewed by persons 2 and up. How do they know the age of the people watching it? Because if that's the case, Bluey probably shouldn't be on there. And it tells you how many minutes were watched, but then when they do their broadcast stuff, it's how many viewers there were. So it still doesn't tell you how many people watched it. It just says how many minutes were watched. That's interesting. Wow. So, and then they show you the most watched commercials. That's interesting. Even DirecTV is an app now. You know, why not? Street Hawk. Okay. Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, you had me for a second. Let's see. Like Star Trek Discovery was only on streaming. They had other shows, their cable broadcast service. Yeah, but again, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're only going to put streaming. The streaming services don't have enough content as it is, and that's with people putting their, like, if you go to Paramount Plus. I mean, you can watch shows from like the '70s and stuff on there because they're desperate to put content on there. On a more positive note, we get a double dose of Strange New Worlds on Thursday. Very good. 2-episode premiere, final resolution of the Gorn cliffhanger. Didn't Nielsen depend on people filling out a logbook? The original Nielsen, yes. Then they created the Nielsen set-top box, which was like a cable box, and basically you changed your channel through the Nielsen box so it knew what channel you were watching. The problem is that, and this is, I would imagine, still even a problem with streaming, is, for example, if, let's say they're monitoring my viewing habits on Paramount Plus, and I fall asleep with Star Trek on, which happens regularly. How accurate is that going to be? I don't know how many people watch Guinea and Gig, whatever that is, or Guinea and Georgia. I gotta look that up. Pace or Guinea and Georgia. Okay, it looks dumb enough to where maybe it is the most popular thing on streaming. So it's a bunch of girls. I don't know what they're all about, though. Let's see. Guinea and Georgia. This series about a mother and daughter trying to outrun their past is lovable and endlessly watchable. So Yeah, you know it's a good show when one of the episodes is actually called Boo Bitch. Spike says, back in the day, this Nielsen works there, embedded into apps. Yep. Hardcastle and McCormick was a fun show. Remember there was Castle, what was it? Oh, gosh. No. Was it Castle and Castle? I'm trying to remember. Alex says, I meant that sometimes I found SF Debris reviews more fun than the actual Trek episode. It was almost the whole episode just moved faster with jokes. Yeah, I liked the SF Debris concept early on. The problem is that he doesn't know how to edit videos. Bill says Bluey is great for adults also, just saying. Well, that's not what I heard. I heard Bluey taught people to, hug spiders in Australia. Or was that someone else? What can I do with all these XPs? Can I exchange them for a prize? Yes. Can you opt out of Nielsen here in Disney Plus? So DisneyPlus.com commerce account. Okay, well, let's do that right now. Thank you. All right, slash. So I don't like the idea of my viewing habits being tabulated without my permission. I'm sure that it's in the terms of service that they have permission to do it, but I don't like it. You have to fill out, I'm sure, yeah, it'll probably take like 6 years to fill out the frickin' form. All right, your plan, blah, 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 manage the devices, restrict profile creation. Manage Nielsen measurement. Nope, you just uncheck it and then save. That's all you gotta do. Let's see. Youngster says they should do a biblical TV show, take it to Genesis all the way to Revelation, only through the point of view of the devil. That would be a cool TV show. Really? Whatever. The studios are shooting themselves in the foot. The streaming wars are like the VHS Betamax format wars of the 80s. Netflix was like the VHS. Well, Netflix does have the advantage of being the first people on the scene. Unfortunately, Disney was coming on strong, but then I think what really hurt them was that they ran out of steam putting quality content on the platform, and they can only produce so quickly. But the problem is Netflix is also struggling with that. But a lot of people get Netflix just because they hear it's good. And they destroy the monopoly. Now people will do the thing I'm not allowed to say, just like before Netflix. I don't know what you're talking about, because if you're talking about people that are breaking the law, well, whether or not there's a monopoly, people are going to break the law. Youngster says, if you're an adult, you watch Bluey, you should be of a certain type of registry at the sheriff's department. Oh, ouch. Yeah, I'm not going to even touch that one. All right, guys. So, I do think I'm going to wrap it up there. We haven't talked about much theologically today, but hey, sometimes you got to blow off some steam. I will ask you guys, though, In all seriousness, those of you that pray, please keep my wife in your prayers. She's very distressed right now because her dog Puka is not doing well. She's been having trouble breathing. She has a heart condition, so it's possible that she's not long for this world. And so, and Bridget loves that dog to death. So just pray for her. If it is time, then pray that it goes smoothly and that she's able to deal with it well. And Alex says, I'm going to buy myself the number one spot. Well, you should have used more money. That would have made me actually happy about it. Spike says, I'm glad I could help you opt out of tracking. I don't mind it, but I don't appreciate how buried the Nielsen opt-out option is. It should be more accessible. Yeah, but, it's one of those things where I'm sure, this is one of those things that's really annoying. The government says you can't make people participate in something like that without notifying them. So what do? They send you an email that says, hey, your terms and conditions have updated. And then you just say, yeah, sure, whatever. And I'm going to buy myself the number one spot. Did you not succeed the first time?
I'm going to buy myself the number one spot, LOL.
Let's see, where you're at. No, you did not succeed. I don't think you could. Well, I know somebody got up to the number one spot real fast, but they left a bigger super chat than that. Let's see. But yeah, right now, let me see. Where are you? What the heck happened? I don't even see you listed. Oh, wait, what the? I'm looking at the wrong screen.
I hash one now.
All right. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong screen. All right, so, no, you are now number 4. Yes, that is right. You are number 4 as of right now. Oh, and Spike, yes, you are number 1. That's it. Get into a war. That's what I want. I want you all to get into a war with super chats to get to the number 1 spot. Oh, actually, let me. I do want to talk for a second about, while I got you guys. I had a little incident happen while driving Uber this last week. And it had me thinking about, I've said a lot of times that if you can help people, you should. That was basically Jesus' philosophy. And it didn't matter if that person was your ally or your enemy, that you should
Piracy
always,
numbers went down in 2010 because
Alex, it does
Netflix
not
was
like
so
you today.
convenient. Numbers went back
see.
up after
I'm trying
Disney
to-
Plus came out.
You refresh. I'm going to refresh the screen just to make sure. And then piracy numbers went down in the 2010s because Netflix was so convenient. Numbers went back up after Disney Plus came out. Yeah, I'm sure that Disney Plus coming out is the reason you think piracy went up. That makes no sense. I think piracy is up because people lack an ethical center. I think that we're drifting as a nation further and further away from God. And as a world, we're drifting further and further away from God. And that means that we don't care about things like, oh, well, we're just stealing from some big nameless corporation. Who cares? A lot of people feel that way, genuinely. Just like a lot of people think it's perfectly okay to cheat on your taxes, or it's perfectly okay to drive over the speed limit, or whatever. That these things are not a big deal. And I disagree with that. But, and, and I understand that some people, don't, even some people that call themselves Christians don't seriously consider what the Bible says. But at the same time, if you're not going to go by what the Bible says, don't call yourself a Christian. Anyway, so back to what I was going to say. There is, I've said a lot of times that we should help people any way we can, and we don't always know how that's going to manifest, right? Because some of us have money, and so we can help people with our money, and that's awesome if you're blessed to do that. Some of us have skills that we can help people with. If say we're a person that happens to be a very handy carpenter, and you see that your next door neighbor's fence needs some work, so you go over and you help them fix their fence. And sometimes an opportunity to help someone just pops up, and you got to make a choice. And that choice is, are you going to do what's good for you, or are you going to do what's good for that person? And I had that happen to me the other day, and so I wanted to tell you guys about this. It's kind of interesting. And I was driving Uber and got a call to pick up somebody at the local state park near the ranger station, which is kind of odd. I've never gotten a call to go to the state park and pick somebody up at the ranger station, but I figured, okay, let's go. It's not that far away. Let's do this. So I drive to the ranger station, and a young lady gets in the car. I'm not going to mention her name because, I don't have permission to discuss this with her, but with you. So, young lady gets in the car, obviously distressed. It's obvious that she had been crying, and just from the look of her, like, I would say she didn't look homeless per se, but she looked kind of disheveled. Like what she was wearing was something that she had to quickly throw on in a spur of the moment kind of circumstance. And so I asked her if she was okay while I was driving to where she had me going. And it's because, I'll be honest, it's not that common for someone to get in the car looking that much of a mess. Most people that get in the car are either neutral to in a good mood. Like, sure, sometimes they'll say, I don't feel like going to work. But, generally not someone who's really upset. And so, she said, well, it's stupid. It's silly, it's dumb. And I said, look, sometimes it feels good to get that off your chest. I know you don't know me. I don't know any of your friends, so I'm not going to tell anybody. And so, maybe it'll help you to bounce it off somebody. And so then she explained to me that she got into a fight with her husband. Now, it wasn't a physical altercation or anything like that. We're not talking about abuse. We're just saying, she got into an argument with him. And then he basically stopped the car, and they got out and fought out of the car for a minute. And then he got back in the car and left her at the at the state park. It literally just left her there. And she was an absolute wreck, and she didn't know what to do. And so, we get to where we were going was just a few minutes away. And it was just a Chipotle where she was supposed to meet her friend, but she was calling her friend and her friend wasn't answering their phone. And so I asked her, look, are you going to be okay? And she says, well, I don't know. I'm really kind of worried. And I said, well, look, and so I went to the Uber app. I logged out so I wouldn't get any more calls in. And I said, we're going to figure this out. I want to get you someplace safe. But, I'm not going to just let you wander off with nobody to go to after what happened to you. And so then she got the idea of calling a friend of hers. So she tried to call her, but her phone died. And so, but before, and when she was down to like 1%, I said, hold on, what's the number? And I dialed the phone, her friend's phone number manually from my phone, so she could talk over the car's phone. And then while she was talking to her friend, they got the idea that there was another friend, because her friend she was talking to on the phone lived in another state, so she couldn't really help. But she had another friend that lived locally that she might be able to stay with at least for the night until she gets things sorted out with her husband. And so the problem is she can't call that friend because the number's on her phone and her phone battery is now dead. So, and we tried, I didn't have an iPhone charger in my car because I have a Android phone. And so and her phone was old enough to where it didn't take QI charging, because I do have a QI charging pad on my car, but that didn't do anything. So we were kind of stuck. So I drove over to it's kind of funny because there's a retail chain called Dollar General, and I was like, well, we can go over to Dollar General, and she's like, where's there a Dollar General? I'm like, well, right there, because it was literally directly across the street from where we were. So I drive over to Dollar General, but she can't pay for it because the way that she pays for everything, being a young stupid kid, is Apple Pay, right? So with her phone dead, she can't pay for anything through Apple Pay. So I said, don't worry about it. I'll get you a cheap charger. It's not going to be the end of the world. But the Dollar General was closed, and there's literally a sign on the door saying closed because it's too hot in the store. So drove down the street to get to a Walmart, and then I just parked the car and left the audio on in the car so she could continue to talk to her friend over the speakerphone while I went in and purchased an iPhone charger. And then we got her phone charged up to like 10%. Then she called her other friend. Her other friend said, sure. But her other friend lives on the other side of town, which is like a half an hour away. And so I ended up driving her over to her other friend's house, where I dropped her off and she stayed the night. Now, when I started this, I said, sometimes you have to think about what's good for you versus what's good for the other person. As most of you know, and I joke about it a lot and everything, but yes, I've been struggling getting the bills paid. I've been driving Uber way more than I like to, but it just kind of comes with the territory. And when I picked her up from the peak earning times for Uber in Murfreesboro tend to be early in the morning and then mid to late afternoon. So like say 6 to 10 in the morning, and then from like 2 till about 5 in the afternoon, right? Well, I picked her up at 2 and I dropped her off at her friend's house at like 5:30 because we're trying to get all this stuff taken care of. And it was funny because I didn't think about it at the time, But that's, to me, it was just like, well, this is just what, needs to be done. She needs, I'm not going to let this girl just wander off and not know where she's going, and not know, she doesn't have a phone, she doesn't have any money, she doesn't have anything, and she's just going to wander around and in the middle of a heat wave. I'm not going to let that happen. So I just got her taken care of, and it took away like half my day's income doing it. But at the end of the day, I felt good about it. I felt good about the fact that I was able to help out a fellow human being in need. And I just want to throw that up to you guys to say, if in fact you ever have the opportunity, help somebody out, and so I'm just saying, always try to help somebody out. Well, here's the funny thing about that, Stan. Sorry, I know some of you guys have been chatting, but as far as, she didn't send me a tip, but her friend that she was talking to lives in another state. She was nice enough to pay me back for the price of the phone charger, plus the approximate cost of what it would have, an Uber ride would have been to take her to her other friend's apartment. So there's a little bit of a silver lining there, but that's a far cry from what I would have gotten had I just, dropped her off and went on my way. But I think that there are times when we need to just put aside whatever our needs are and just deal with whatever's in front of us. And because when another human being needs our help and we can help, we should. It's just facts. All right, so let me see if there's anything major here. YouTube's adding this ranking so people will send super chats instead of like coffee donations or other services. Maybe, because coffee is a far better buy than super chats generally, because super chats, YouTube takes 30%, coffee only takes 5%, and even that is voluntary. Let's see. Uncle Raymond says you can't steal what you can't own. You absolutely can. And, stealing, illegally downloading movies is a perfect example. You're right. Technically, like, you don't own digital copies of stuff. You lease it. But you actually can own a movie. You can go to the store and still buy DVDs or Blu-rays of a lot of them, not all of them. But if you really want to, you can, you can download stuff that you're subscribed to your computer, keep it as a backup copy, and as long as your hard drive doesn't ever go out, you have a copy. So, but you can't technically own military. You can't technically own an M1 tank, right? But you can steal one. Hope you don't mind me promoting other channels. Mr. Know-It-All, I hear that. It says Mr. KIA, I keep thinking Killed in Action, has a premiere for his final Ironheart view in half an hour. Okay. Title, I Was Wrong. So we'll see. Well, I don't want to know what he thinks. So don't suppose, please. You offer phone charging in the back of the Uber. Well, there are some ports. The problem is I tried to keep a phone charge cord available, but people steal them. And I don't have an endless supply of phone cords, So the one that I bought for her is still in the car. And so if you have an iPhone, you need a charger right now, I do have one. But if someone steals it, then it'll be gone. In charge ×1, recommend this phone charger, multi-phone charger. It's pretty good. It's a good investment. It would not be a good investment for in the back of an Uber car because people steal stuff. Karma, it'll come back to you. I don't believe in karma. Odd Librarian says, I see what you're saying about helping people out, but I'm so sick of people manipulating everyone into helping them rather than being proactive in their own lives. Am I a bad person? Well, I don't think I know you well enough to know you're not a bad person, but when you're talking about people manipulating everyone into helping them rather than being proactive in their own lives, there are various ways people do that, right? So you have people begging on the side of the streets, right? You have people begging on YouTube for super chats, right? You have, but at the same time, I think that while it's a tough one because and this is one where my pastor and I actually disagree on. But I don't consider it a major issue. So if you disagree with me on this, it's not like I think, oh, you're a horrible person. I just think we disagree on it. If a person I tend to, what I do is like if somebody gives me a cash tip and there's $1 bills in it, I save those $1 bills and I keep them in a little folder above my visor. And when I see someone begging on the side of the street, I'll give them $1. Now, there are a lot of people that say when you see that person begging, they probably want drugs, or you're paying someone who's being, pimped out or whatever. And sometimes that's probably true. The problem is you don't know that. The problem is that you're making a judgment call that you ought not make, because that's between them and God. If they're holding up a sign saying that they're disabled and they're homeless and their dog just died and their mother-in-law just beat them up or whatever, and they're lying to you, then that's on them. But I think that, if I have, and there are times when I don't, like right now, I don't have any extra money in my little folder that I keep the extra ones in. And so right now, I can't do anything. But if I have the extra dollar in my thing, I will give it to them without hesitation. Because I don't think it's our place to necessarily judge whether or not their needs are legitimate. Now, that being said, the Bible makes it very clear that he who is not willing to work should not eat. However, there's kind of a caveat to that. Of course, keep in mind this is in a day and age where there was no such thing as any kind of welfare program or anything like that. But if somebody was begging on the streets, most of the time in those days, it was because they were a physical invalid, because there was no Social Security or anything like that. And if they didn't have family to take care of them, they either begged on the streets or they died. Which I know there are people, some of which watch my live streams, that agree with that philosophy. I don't. Now, if somebody says they're a disabled vet, does that, to me, it's like, oh, wow, so you get VA benefits and you might get military retirement. And if you're truly disabled, you probably get Social Security. So, you should have something coming in. But I don't know. For all I know, the person does, is incapacitated in such a way that they don't know how to apply for any of that stuff. Or they are, suffer from some kind of severe mental disorder to where they're incapable of doing that. And so I'll just give them what I can, when I can. But I don't give them more than I can. Like, I'm not going to run to the bank and take out my last 20 so that I can give it to the person that's standing on the street corner. As far as like people that ask for support online, I'm extremely skeptical of things like GoFundMe's and stuff like that. because there have been time after time after time where people would make up some kind of big tragedy and then set up a GoFundMe account. There have been a few times, and you guys know some of the stuff I've been through in my life. There have been a few times where people have suggested, "Oh, you should do a GoFundMe and all that," and it's like, GoFundMe's just leave a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm pretty much an open book, and you guys know what my life is like. I don't try to sugarcoat it, and I also don't try to over dramatize it. When I'm having a good day, I'll tell you that I'm doing all right. When I'm having a bad day, I'll tell you I'm not doing all right. And today's kind of a in between day. But I hope that people don't think, like when I joke around about super chats, I hope people don't think that I'm trying to manipulate them into giving me money rather than being proactive in my own life. That's one of the reasons, like, I'll be honest, I would rather be making YouTube videos all day long and posting them on this channel and the Salty Plus channel. And that person that I was telling you about, she was trying to convince me to set up something on whatchamacallit, what's the Chinese app? TikTok. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I can't do any of that right now because right now I have to do, spend every waking hour basically, except for on Sundays. Sunday's like my one day I don't go driving. So tomorrow morning when I get up, I hit the road. I get home, I do the live stream. Then, wife and I maybe watch an hour-long TV show and go to bed. Tuesday, get up, hit the road. Come home, do the live stream. Maybe the wife and I have an hour to watch TV, go to bed. I mean, that's pretty much my week. So the when I get to a point where I don't have to drive quite so much, I'll be able to focus more on content creation. I'm hoping that once I can, then I can grow the other channel, maybe even grow this channel a little bit, and get some ad revenue going and stuff like that. But who knows? Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But unfortunately, right now, I'm kind of stuck between the proverbial rock and a hard place. But I'm not asking people to super chat me out of it. I'm simply trying to drive as much Uber as I possibly can. And I think that, one thing I don't like is if you have YouTubers that do live streams and they only read super chats, or some of them will only read large super chats, so that kind of thing bugs me. And I understand if you have a live stream, you have 3,000 people watching and the chat is just going a million miles an hour. That's why at that point, because you've got the revenue for it, you start getting actual producers to work with you that will scour the comments as they're coming in and find good comments to send to you to read, because you can't watch that kind of a chat scroll go by and actually pick stuff out. But I'd rather do that than to just read if somebody super chats a whole bunch of money, because I think that's just messed up. So that's a very long-winded answer. No, I don't think you're a bad person. I do find it annoying if I get the feeling that people are manipulating people, especially where I find it is like when you find out after the fact that people have been manipulated. You learn about these people like the word faith movement in Christianity, for those of you that don't know, the so-called prosperity gospel, or name it and claim it, it's also called. Where people believe that, or they try, these pastors, these charismatic pastors, will try to teach you that if you're struggling in any way, shape, or form, it's simply because you lack faith. And the way that you get that is you have to give money to me, and then by giving money to me, the Lord will return it to you tenfold. and these evil people will sit there in their shows and say, if you only have $10 left and you have to choose between getting food and donating to me, you should donate to me. You know, people that say that kind of thing, I genuinely believe there is a special place in hell waiting for them. Well, like when you waited in the car with someone for an hour for the bus. Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. There's Arabic is here. Good to see you, Arabic. Sorry I didn't acknowledge you earlier. And Odd Librarian says, by manipulating people, I mean people who literally do nothing. I knew someone who couldn't keep a job because she was toxic and complained that she was always the victim. Well, there are people that are addicted to victimhood. And the problem is that we as a society have, and I'm not pointing the finger at any particular group, because newsflash, every major group in our society does this to some extent. Every group. We glorify victimhood. We revel in victimhood. I get so sick of hearing Christians scream that they're being persecuted when they don't even know the meaning of the word. Right? I get so, I remember one time, and I know this is going to sound insensitive to some people, but I don't care. Truth is truth. As many of you know, my wife is black. And when the whole thing was coming about with gays screaming that they needed civil rights, and then they started comparing themselves to blacks as far as the discrimination against them. And so, which my wife said, the rather brilliant comment is that, I won't mind them comparing themselves to me as soon as I can come out as a black person. Because the funny thing about, people say, I was discriminated on the job because I'm gay. Well, why did they know you were gay? Well, because I told everybody. Well, why did you tell everybody? You know what? Granted, I know today it's like no big deal to most people, but, if you really think that someone is going to be a horrifically homophobic individual if they find out you're gay, then don't tell them you're gay. Yeah, I don't get to choose whether or not, well, I guess I could dye my hair, but I don't get to choose whether or not people see that I'm old by my hair color. But yeah, people that self-vilify a lot, I think they're trying to get in on some of that action because Christians glorify being victims from persecution. Republicans glorify being victims of cancel culture. Liberals revel in being the victims of the Trump administration. Everybody wants to be the victim of somebody else. I'm not interested in being anybody's victim if I can avoid it, right? And sure, I could sit here and whine and complain for hours on end about how horrible it is to have MS and how it sucks and how unfair it is that we don't have some kind of wonderful universal healthcare system that would prevent me from having lost, so much trying to find out what was going on when I was sick. How unfair it is that Social Security pays me roughly a third of what I was making before and stuff like that. I can sit there and complain about that, but I'm not a victim whore. I'm not interested in just saying, oh, everybody feels sorry for me, I'm a victim. And so you guys know the facts, but I'm not going to sit here and, revel in them. So I totally understand where you're coming from. I would say this, if the person that you're talking about, if you know for a fact that they're doing it and, you have any kind of authority in their lives, then I would call them out on it. If you don't have any kind of authority in their lives, then I would wash my hands of it. And that's about all you can do. You know, if they claim to be a Christian and they're doing something specifically unchristian, then you are obligated to call that out. But you're obligated to do it in a biblical fashion, which means you confront them about it, and if they refuse to listen, then you bring somebody else to with you to confront them. If they still continue to not listen, then you start getting the officials of the church involved. But, you know, outside of that, you know, you just kind of, people be stupid, people be crazy, and people just love being the victim. Kind of like how Arabic thinks he's the victim because whenever he says hello,